So today we will be discussing a variety of different incidents going on with modern day mammals, as well as new finds on sauropods and amphibians. From prehistoric to present, my name is Ethan. This is Creature Guide Live Daily News. You can catch new episodes throughout the day at Creature Guide Live on mobile and YouTube. Now, let's get into the news of the day, starting off with an article by Outdoors.com. This animal damaged over 20 vehicles in Massachusetts. Wow. A neighborhood vandal has terrorized more than 20 vehicles in the Massachusetts town of Rockport, but there's not much the police can do about it. That's because the vandal is an animal about 18 to 24 inches tall. Okay. It always wears black and white to do its dirty deeds, along with a bright red hat. I don't know what this is so far. It's a male woodpecker. Oh, what? 18 to 24 inches tall? You mean the wingspan? Because I would be excited, but, yeah, quite shocked. And it's pecking at all the car windows in Rockport, Massachusetts, because it thinks its reflection is a rival woodpecker. This isn't just a woodpecker that this will occur with. This will also be seen further south in different regions with the red cardinal bird, but it doesn't do usually anywhere near the damage of woodpeckers. Red cardinals will also go up to rear view mirrors of um, different vehicles and see the reflection as a rival male cardinal. But the thing is that pileated woodpeckers are notorious, like, for being the main species of woodpecker for having this type of behavior. Now, the thing is that when it comes to their wingspan, it's somewhere between 24 to 30 inches when looking at the males. They barely weigh any more than 14 ounces, usually range between 7 to 14 ounces, with the females being a bit smaller. And um, they also feed on, like, different species of insects, fungi, fruit, so they're not going off to cars usually, um, intending on, killing somebody because it's doing all this damage to the vehicles. Um, they're they're just mentally gone. So experts say the culprit is a pileated woodpecker, which all about birds calls one of the biggest, most striking forest birds on the continent. These animals have black and white striped feathers on their bodies and a bold red crest on the tops of their heads. I just thought I'd read that description um, because I think everybody should know who the um, culprit is, just what the woodpecker looks like, and it's nothing too extraordinary. Except for this individual going after 20 cars. That's quite unique. A lot of respect towards it, but also this is too far. He is needs to be put in. I'm not sure put in jail. Like somebody should possibly get rid of him because he's doing so much damage. So we need to get a bobcat out there. Maybe cooperate with a pack of coyotes and find this woodpecker. Pileated woodpeckers live throughout much of the central and eastern United States, along with some areas of the Pacific Northwest. Yeah, it's interesting. When you look at the home range of the pileated woodpecker, and also there are over 23 different species of woodpecker within the United States, many of which, when it comes to pecking, they're mostly focusing on different species of hardwood forest trees, even going after different species of pine. But this specific animal you don't find very far south. You're going to find it in different regions of the Cascade Mountains or Blue Mountains of Oregon, Washington, over into different parts of British Columbia. And you don't really find them in southern Canada. You can find them in like central areas of um, Alberta, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, even to Ontario, and then you can find them in different areas of New England, so like Maine, Massachusetts, New York, um, let's see, over parts of different parts of the Midwest, like, Minnesota, Wisconsin. Anyway, um, but why is this woodpecker or perhaps multiple woodpeckers pecking at car windows in Massachusetts? It's mating season for these birds, and apparently the birds are feeling a bit aggressive. When a male woodpecker sees its own reflection, it might become confused and think a rival is staring it down. Folks of Rockport can tell you what happens next. Just anywhere where you come into contact with this. Is there a picture? Mm, hmm. Is there something here? Please tell me you're gonna show us. Oh, okay. Here's some. Geez. Yeah, maybe get some squirrels on him too. Sometimes squirrels will go after birds. Um, I don't want to see the damage. Oh, there he is. There's even video. Oh, this cartoon always creeps me out. Um, okay, so let's see. Some damage in this, but it's definitely due to other cause. So is this all the same? Just looking for oh, in this case. Yeah, in many cases, they will peck into different structures, not just cars, houses, apartments. Mhm. I forgot what that was. Okay, well, um, anything else? Yeah, the thing is, when it comes to, woodpeckers in general, they're usually just focusing on different species of trees and trying to obtain different grubs, beetles, even like certain ant species out of the bark. They'll go over to, healthy trees as well as even different rotten trees. Rotten trees tend to host a lot of, different parasites for the different tree species. So let me know what your thoughts are on the pileated woodpecker invader. So in the comments, and thank you for joining Creature Guide Live. Now let's move on to the next article by Indian Defense Review. Early dinosaurs may have been bigger. A groundbreaking study reveals new clues. A newly uncovered 225 million-year-old fossil challenges everything we knew about early dinosaurs. These are the worst AI dinosaurs. In fact, some of these are based off of that's a toy. It's based off of like I think a Sora Poseidon that I have. Um, a groundbreaking study published in Royal Society Open Science delves into a 225 million-year-old fossil discovered in Zambia, which could dramatically alter our understanding of early dinosaur evolution. You have many Triassic species of not just dinosaurs, but different types of archosaurs, which is the family of reptiles in which dinosaurs derive from, as well as birds, crocodiles, alligators, not lizards. That was a completely different lineage of reptiles. and they evolved far beforehand in the Carboniferous period, over 310 million years ago. Um, let's see. The ancient leg bone believed to belong to a silosaur. So, silosaurs are a group of archosauromorphs which evolved from the archosaurs, and they are closely related to dinosaurs, but they're their own group of reptiles. So, um, and they, for the most part, like they existed during the Triassic period. It was a very short period of time, somewhere between like 252 to a little over 235 million years ago. An early reptile close to dinosaurs suggests that early dinosaur ancestors might have been significantly larger than previously thought. This finding casts new light on the size and ecological roles of early dinosaurs and their relatives, potentially reshaping the way we understand the Triassic period. As researchers uncover more fossil evidence, it becomes increasingly clear that the size of these reptiles has been historically underestimated. Yeah, when looking at different species of silosaurs, there's a variety of different species that didn't really reach much more than um, 3.5 to 4 feet in height. Many of them actually being quite quadrupedal. Now, some you can say have almost like a plateosauromorph sort of a look. So the predecessors to the sauropods. But when you look at their anatomy, especially their feet, they're very distinct from most dinosaurs. Their head, you could say, can look quite similar. Even their neck structure is a bit different. They are quite odd creatures. Um, Quite a few of them also being quite omnivorous. So going after insects, the early mammals, proto mammals at the time, even vegetation. The fossil in question, a femur discovered in the 1960s, was not initially recognized for its significance. The bone, preserved in the archives of the Natural History Museum, had been overlooked for decades until Jack Lovegrove, a PhD student, re examined it. What makes this discovery so vital is its connection to the silosaurs, group of early reptiles considered to be the ancestors of dinosaurs or their closest relatives. Yeah, it is this is a very debatable group of archosaurs that existed during the early Triassic period. So, these animals, it's possible they might have been the ancestors to the dinosaurs or were their closest relatives, like it states. This is a major debate due to the anatomy of these animals when they first appeared, which is right before the dinosaurs evolved, at least um, based on previous findings, but more discoveries in like the past 4 years are pointing to the clues that dinosaurs might have been around earlier than previously thought. So over um, easily 230 million years ago. These creatures lived during the Triassic period, and their fossilized remains have long been fragments that have perplexed paleontologists. Now, they didn't exist throughout the whole Triassic period, mainly like the first 20 million years, it seems. Jack Lovegrove's study adds weight to the theory that these animals were not as small as initially assumed. Some fragmentary fossils from these silosaurids and a group of early dinosaurs called the Herrerasaurids suggest that these animals could grow much bigger than more complete remains suggests, says Lovegrove. This finding implies that the size of the first dinosaurs might have been much larger than predicted. Oh, um, okay, so I guess what they're describing is that they found Herrerasaurs and Silosaurids in the same place, which I guess you could say has occurred with the earliest Herrerasaurid species. Herrerasaurs were a large group of theropod dinosaurs in the or during the Triassic period. They've been found in different formations throughout most of the different continents, and they range in size from some are around 3 feet to over 15 feet in length. So this finding implies that the size of the first dinosaurs might have been larger than predicted, adding complexity to the narrative of their early evolution. As researchers continue to find larger fossils from the same time period, the possibility that the first dinosaur was bigger than expected is becoming a compelling theory. Well, if it's referring to the silosaurs or um, to the silosaurs, you can't really call them a dinosaur or its closest relative at the moment. I mean, it really is a big question about them. If you're referring to Herrerasaurs, then yes, you could refer to it as like one of the first dinosaurs. But um, it also, I explained it earlier. Um, the Okay, so it's mentioning like larger fossils from the same time period. This could be the epoch of the Triassic period that's referring to, but silosaurs and herrerasaurs were quite abundant through different epochs of the Triassic period. So, but this is mentioning around 225 million years ago, and I believe that Silosaurus had already gone extinct by 225 million years ago. Like that was, if any were around, that was the last of them. But the Herrerasaurs, they would continue throughout the Triassic period. So this is a bit odd. It would make more sense if it was referring to like larger fossils from like a certain formation and maybe a certain group in that formation, which is referring to like certain time frames of the formation. So you can have an area where it's somewhere between 235 to 233 million years ago, and then another one where it's like 233, 231. So it just can keep um, occurring later in time. Okay, so this is possibly the fossilized specimen of a silosaur. For years, silosaurs were considered a sister group to dinosaurs, but modern research is revealing that they might be much closer relatives. Silosaurs, such as Silosaurus, yeah, it's a bit of a debate with specifically Silosaurus itself. It could be actually a member of the Ornithischian lineage of dinosaurs, which would consist later on of animals such as the ornithopods, like the ceratopsians, the iguanodontids, the stegosaurs, and chylosaurs. Um, okay. Okay, Silosaurs were herbivorous reptiles that grew to about 2 meters in length. Silosaurus might have actually been quite omnivorous, looking at the skull structure of the animal. With their beak-like jaws, it is believed they fed on plants or insects. Oh, well, would have been correct to say omnivorous. And for a long time, their exact relationship with dinosaurs remained uncertain. New findings, however, are offering fresh insights into their evolutionary role. Well, so far, it's not mentioning like a certain study that confirmed that. So it might, I think it's still up for debate, even with Silosaurus itself. The thing is with the Silosaurs that there's over 20 different genre of these distinct reptiles. So um, it's not just Silosaurus itself. As more large animals are found close to the origin of dinosaurs, it raises the possibility that the first dinosaur was bigger than we predicted, Lovegrove explains. This discovery challenges the traditional view that early dinosaurs were small, agile creatures. Um, huh. Instead, it suggests that the first dinosaurs might have been significantly larger, potentially leading to their domination of the Triassic ecosystems. I still think that dinosaurs at this point would have been quite quick, just agile in general. There was only so large it could have been at this point, even of the fossils that we already have. Yeah, as you reach later into the Triassic with different types of plateosauromorphs, they were a bit slower. But when looking at the omnivores or predators in the regions, I would think that they were still quite quick, or just nimble on their feet. The study also touches on how silosaurs might have evolved into early dinosaurs, with some silosaurid species potentially growing much bigger than previously understood. Despite the fragmentary nature of the fossil record, researchers are using modern techniques to better understand the relationships between silosaurs and dinosaurs. So, this looks like it's pushing the theory that silosaurs were the direct ancestors to dinosaurs, at least at this point. Because earlier it made it out like it was just a very close relative or a branch of reptiles. This fossil was discovered on an expedition to what are now Zambia and Tanzania in the early 1960s, Lovegrove elaborates. Zambia and Tanzania are very famous for their Triassic fossils, especially different species of Herrerasaurid have been discovered here, and a wide variety of different species of crocodilomorphs that are descendants of the archosaurs have been discovered over in different formations, Triassic formations of Zambia and Tanzania. The Dicynodonts too. The researchers were mainly interested in studying mammal-like reptiles. No, 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 no. These are not reptiles. These are proto-mammals, um, such as the Dicynodonts and Cynodonts, but also found a variety of other fossils. Yeah, they're their own distinct clade of therapsids, but they're not anywhere closely related to animals such as lizards, crocodiles, snakes. These are the closest relatives back in the Permian, late Permian, and the Triassic period to mammals. So the Dicynodonts and Cynodonts, they're technically two different things. The Cynodonts refers to smaller proto mammals like the Thrinaxodon. There have been a wide variety of different genera related to Thrinaxodon that have been discovered, except Thrinaxodon is a late Permian species from somewhere around 250 to 252 million years ago. And then there's the Dicynodonts, which appeared in the Permian somewhere around 265 million years ago and would go extinct at the end of the Triassic, somewhere around 202 million years ago. So, the Dicynodonts, those are animals such as Placerius, and there have been even larger individuals that have been found in places such as South Africa that can be nearly the size of an Asian elephant. So, we're talking over 4 tons and were quite herbivorous. So they were probably feeding on a variety of different species of smaller conifer, different species of wetland plants, and ferns. These animals did not have teeth, unlike many different species of herbivorous dinosaur at the time. And the cynodonts, those small proto mammals like Thrinaxodon tend to be quite carnivorous. So probably going after by the time the dinosaurs evolved, so let's say we're somewhere around 230 million years ago, they would be going after smaller species of dinosaurs, probably especially their young, and also feeding on insects and even other mammals in the region. This highlights the importance of museum collections in preserving specimens that may hold key information for future scientific breakthroughs. The findings of Lovegrove and his colleagues challenged the idea that silosaurs were merely small, herbivorous creatures in the shadow of larger animals. Well, silosaurs, I mean, if you're looking at the overall length, even Silosaurus itself, you're still looking at animals around 7 feet in length and maybe 2.5 to 3 feet tall. Looking at the weight, I mean, probably weighs somewhere around 120 pounds. So yes, it was quite they had a bit of a skinny frame compared to many other archosauromorphs. Their study suggests that silosaurids, particularly those from the Triassic rocks of Zambia, so Zambia is in like southeastern Africa, could have been the largest herbivores in their ecosystems. The size of the bone we've studied, as well as others from this formation, suggest. Did you even mention the formation? Hmm. Suggests that silosaurids might have been the largest herbivores in some parts of the world at this point in the Triassic, Lovegrove explains. The implications are significant. These reptiles might have outgrown even the Dicynodonts, traditionally considered the dominant herbivores of the time. Oh, yeah. The Dicynodonts were practically some of the largest herbivores on land. So, excluding the largest platysauromorphs, it was the giant um, Dicynodonts like relatives of Placerius that dominated the fern landscape. Um, you might have had different species of herbivorous crocodilomorphs in certain regions, but the largest crocodilomorphs in different parts of the Triassic were carnivorous. And so even the Dicynodonts had to be quite wary of the water and different crocodilomorphs on land. So you had both crocodilomorphs on the land and the water that would go after different or hunt different species of Dicynodonts and the Plateosauromorphs. And even the carnivorous dinosaurs at the time, they had to be extremely careful. They were not the top predator during the Triassic period. This revelation leads to a reimagining of the role silosaurs played in Triassic ecosystems. Their larger size would have given them a much greater ecological impact than previously realized. The biggest silosaurs were probably taller and longer than the Dicynodonts, even if they were lighter. Um, yeah, they probably were much lighter compared to Dicynodonts, but I don't know what the biggest silosaurid is. Um, it is interesting that apparently they found just much larger genre. I'm thinking of the smaller individuals. It's possible that these reptiles were more influential in shaping the Triassic environment, a fact that researchers are only beginning to appreciate fully. Yeah, these Dicynodonts, even certain herbivorous crocodilomorphs, the herbivorous dinosaurs at the time, they would have played a key ecosystem role or niche, like with what you see in many herbivores today, or later on into the Mesozoic when sauropods, stegosaurs would fill in those central niches. So they are the essential seed dispersers. And just overall helping fertilize the landscape as well. So the implications of this discovery stretch beyond the size of these ancient reptiles. If silosaurs were indeed the largest herbivores in certain regions, it challenges the traditional view of Triassic ecosystems as being dominated by Dicynodonts. Yeah, I haven't looked into silosaurs, especially these different branches of Archosauromorphs, because um, actually, they're just less often talked about, though they are a really interesting part of the evolution of the different branches of Archosaurs. When it comes to Archosaurs, most people just think of the dinosaurs. Occasionally, you might hear somebody mention the crocodilomorphs, but also when referring to the crocodilomorphs, there's a wide variety of these different of these creatures. That's just like crocodilomorpha. It's just a very basic term for like the whole variety of different families of crocodilomorphs, like the Rausuchians, Pseudosuchians during this time, and many of which were also carnivorous. But there's also a wide variety of other archosaurs, like the silosaurs, that it's not mentioning, that are descendants of the archosaurs. Um, if similarities were indeed, oh, I said that. Okay. It suggests that they probably had a much greater impact on the ecosystem than we've realized, especially as they are the most common archosaur found in this region. Hmm, didn't know that. Lovegrove concludes this new perspective on silosaur ecology is crucial for understanding how the first dinosaurs and their relatives shaped the ancient world. Is that it? Yeah, so this is really interesting about them discovering a bit more about these silosaurs from Zambia and Tanzania. It's unfortunate that they only showed that small specimen and they didn't give us even a picture of a silosaur. It was just a goofy, you know. Oh yeah, not even estimated size of any of these creatures. They didn't mention the formation, the fossil formation that the silosaurs or possibly the herrerasaurs and the proto mammals were found in. Um, like it just mentioned Zambia and Tanzania. There's a wide variety of different formations within these countries, hundreds of them. Um, so yeah, it's a big question as to all of this. I want pretty soon. I want more of these types of archosauromorphs coming into the news. So um, I'm going to yeah, we're going to look into more of these and let me know what your thoughts are on the Silosaurus in the comments. And thank you for joining Creature Guide Live. So let's move on to the next article by Popular Science. Secret koala population discovered near Australian City. These furry marsupials are cryptic and hard to find. Yes, look. It's a female with her Joey. Koala with her koala female with her baby at the Perth Zoo in Australia. I don't know where the Perth Zoo is. If they look okay. When you think of koalas, Phascolarctos cinereus, chances are that words like cute or fluffy come to mind, not cryptic or stealthy. I think koalas are quite stealthy. They just walk up to you in stores in different parts of Australia if they're very, comfortable with the town, and it's usually adjacent to a forest of theirs. And yet, researchers in southeastern Australia have just discovered hundreds of previously undocumented koalas living surprisingly close to the city of Newcastle. Well, that's interesting. You would think that um, every koala population has been discovered, and apparently not. The team conducted what they claim to be the largest and most accurate peer reviewed koala survey to date. Well, that's good to hear. Koalas are mainly found in the eastern coastal forest regions of um, Queensland, New South Wales, and down into part of, well, some of southern Victoria and a little bit of southeastern South Australia. So, South Australia is a state of the country. So, also, as you migrate further west in these different states, especially Queensland and New South Wales, you're going to find a lot of fragmented koala populations. So many of these koala populations, they do not have close proximity to each other. You have to reach the different forests, coastal eucalyptus forests, and like of Queensland, New South Wales, even Victoria, to find koala populations that are in closer proximity to each other. It's a big problem with many of these populations because apparently more of them are being found to have inbred genetics. So that is very unfortunate. There's somewhere between 200,000 to 300,000 koalas in the wild. And um, let's just keep going. As detailed in a study published this month in the journal Biological Conversation, the survey estimates that a population of 4,357 koalas across 166,302 acres of land is living in the state of New South Wales. Over 290 previously unknown koalas are living in the Sugarloaf State Conservation Area alone. Sugarloaf State Conservation Area. I don't know where that is. There's a wide variety of different protected areas that koalas inhabit over in the eastern part of Australia. Hey, it's Dave. A baby koala clings to its. That's a female. That's Ava. Um, a baby koala clings to its mother, nestled in the treetops at Sugarloaf State Conservation Area. Think I might see the baby slightly in the background. So she's very proud. We were surprised to find such a large number of koalas in Sugarloaf State Conservation Area because of its proximity to a major regional city. Study co-author and conservation scientist Ryan Witt of University of Newcastle tells Popular Science. But what is oh, wait a second. Was that the 4,000? I'm going to go back up real quick. Oh, okay. 4,357 koalas across 166,000 acres in New South Wales, but 290 within the conservation area. Okay. Hmm. Question is, do they have close proximity to the other koala populations? Because I don't know specifically where in New South Wales this is. Um, while the area is a known koala habitat, most of New South Wales supports very low koala densities. Discovering a higher density population so close to urban development is unexpected. Um, well, I guess you could say when you're talking about a higher density of koalas, yes, this isn't very common, but it's not surprising that there are koalas against different, I'm guessing, suburban neighborhoods and like even a small town nearby. There, it quite often occurs where there are at least smaller koala populations. The question is, are those genetically um, um, just well interbred with different genetics? But koalas aren't moving closer to people. People are moving into koala habitats. Um, The secret population, as it's described in a statement, has probably been there all along. There are existing populations that have been quietly holding on in the bush right under our noses. I'm pretty sure koalas are usually above our noses, but okay. Wit adds, we just haven't been able to detect them properly until now. Yeah, it was hiding from you. That's likely because koalas are famously cryptic and hard to spot, particularly in dense vegetation, according to Witt. As such, he and his colleagues developed a new survey approach to find them: thermal drones with spotlights. Yeah, so the koalas in these regions, I mean, they're most going to be up in the canopy and are quite arboreal. So they spend most of their time up in the trees, not spending very much time on the ground, but far longer than something like a sloth, which comes down to the ground once a week to urinate and defecate. S- oh yeah, well, yeah, koalas have to do their daily shopping routine because there are many instances where they're just going into video stores or they're checking out dishwashers and dryers. You're just like, I saw something interesting here. Let's see. I think they want to stick a dingo in the dryer. Um, because dingoes eat koalas. Um, as such, he and his oh, I already did that. The team maneuvered the drone toward heat spots and turned the spotlight on to confirm the suspected koala presence by sight. According to study co-author and University of Newcastle PhD candidate Shelby Ryan, this technique was more accurate than using a method such as artificial intelligence, which might misidentify other animals as koalas. Yeah, AI will do that consistently. Okay, so they're here at the Sugarloaf State Conservation Area. Guess they're going to do, oh, so they're doing the survey for the koalas. Those scientists have previously used heat detecting drones to find wild animals. The researchers from the new studies say that their incorporation of spotlights is unique. Witt calls it a game changer in terms of accuracy, speed, and scalability. By combining thermal imaging with real time spotlight validation, we've built a reliable survey technique for detecting species that are hard to find, Witt says. It's a step change in how we monitor wildlife, and it opens up new possibilities for surveying other elusive species around the world. So, what do we got here? Looks like thermal imaging, thermal drone on the left. reveals a yellow dot. Oh, okay. So there's the koala. I'm guessing. Signaling potential body heat. Picture on the right. The thermal heat spot is confirmed to be a koala. So maybe it's the female with her young. No, it just looks like no. That's a single individual. I don't see a baby on its back. So maybe hmm, yeah, Steve. After directing, after directly surveying around 10% of 7 national parks across the state of New South Wales, they used a computer model to estimate koala abundance across the reserve land, a rare metric for most wildlife species. It's a big step forward because knowing how many animals are out there and where they're holding on is essential for protecting them. What concludes, yeah, but it's also their genetics. That's a big thing. That used to not really hit me as often as like um, how much how unique is their genetics, and like most of the time just be okay. We've got 2 or 300 in an area. That's good to know. Um, they're not on the brink, and then it turns out, unfortunately, with many species of animals, they do not have the best genetics, and it's very concerning. This isn't just about koalas, it's about transforming how we monitor forest ecosystems globally. You can't protect what you can't find, and now we finally can. Um, I don't think this is a new type of just style of locating animals. We've been doing this for a number of years. Okay, that's it. Well, this is good to know that they found another population of koalas within the Sugarloaf Conservancy, and hopefully they're healthy. We don't know yet, and at least by the individuals that we've seen, they seem quite just physically um, buff. So they've been munching on quite a few different species of eucalyptus in these different regions. They don't just munch on one different species, one distinct species. So let me know what your thoughts are on the koalas in New South Wales in the comments. And thank you for joining Creature Guide Live. Now let's move on to the next article by India Defense Review. Huh. Rare 240 million year old amphibian fossil uncovered in Australia. A retired chicken farmer's backyard discovery of a 240 million year old amphibian fossil has unveiled a rare glimpse into Earth's prehistoric past. Looks like we've got here a Tebnis, Tesmaspondal amphibian. So these first evolved some point during the Permian, around 200, somewhere between 272 and 290 million years ago. I believe there's some though even further back, like even into the Carboniferous period. I might be off on that. This could be before 310 million years ago. In a remarkable stroke of luck, a 240 million year old amphibian fossil was uncovered in a pile of rocks used for building a garden retaining wall in New South Wales, Australia. Oh, okay, we're back. This unprecedented find has offered researchers a fascinating glimpse into the Triassic period, revealing the life of an ancient species that once roamed the rivers of what is now Australia. The fossil, recently studied by experts from UNSW Sydney and the Australian Museum, belongs to a newly described species called Aranarpeton supinatus, or the supine sand creeper. That's actually pretty good. That's actually creative. Most of many species of different prehistoric animals lately have been a bit dull, at least in their meaning. This actually brings a lot of life to it, especially an amphibian. I guess people don't really think that animals such as different species of tyrannosaurs or new species of sauropod, if you're referring to dinosaurs, need a whole lot of emphasis to their name. I disagree. I think you should just add more to it anyway, especially a sauropod. Most people think of them as just lumbering conifer eaters. And for the most part, that is what they were. And you need to add excitement for that type of a creature, um, especially since they also had much smaller brains. The discovery, first made in the 1990s, has since been published in the Journal of Vertebrate Paleontology, where researchers, including Lachlan Hart and Matthew McCurry, shed light on its significance. Okay, so this is one of these um, prehistoric animals, probably thrown in a wastebasket, and um, now were pulled out of the bucket and have been identified as their own distinct genus and species. So this is good to hear. It's probably just before recognized as some Tebnis spondomorph. The discovery of Auranarpaton supinatus occurred when a retired chicken farmer collected stones from a local quarry to build a garden wall. Among these rocks, he found an extraordinary fossil, which he later donated to the Australian Museum in Sydney. The fossil consists of a nearly complete skeleton of the amphibian. Okay, now I wonder if it was not put in a wastebasket. It was just recently that he donated the amphibian skeleton, providing an incredible insight into a species that lived long before the dinosaurs roamed the earth. Well, not too long. This is 240 million years ago. You could have had it where at least 8 million years later, you would have had different smaller species of dinosaur evolve. Notably, the fossil not only includes the skeleton, but also features rare soft tissue preservation, making it a remarkable specimen in the field of paleontology. Lachlan Hart, a PhD candidate in the School of Biological, Earth, and Environmental Sciences at UNSW, emphasized the rarity of such finds, stating, "This fossil is a unique example of a group of extinct animals known as temnospondyls, which lived before and during the time of the dinosaurs." There are a wide variety of different subfamilies of temnospondyls that occurred throughout the Triassic, Jurassic, and the beginning of the early Cretaceous period. Unfortunately, somewhere around 120 to 125 million years ago, they perished. It's been debated as to whether or not the different warming events that occurred, and also in Australia, which is where some of the last occurred, especially the more famous Coolosuchus occurred here. And due to possibly some warming event, the crocodilomorphs moved in and possibly outcompeted it. There might have been something else that occurred, but it's also very possible that the temnospondyls, like Coolosuchus, would have been the predecessors to modern day um, amphibians, like different species of salamander, such as the Chinese and Japanese giant salamanders. And the Chinese salamander is much larger than the Japanese giant salamander. Chinese giant salamanders can reach somewhere around 120 to 150 pounds. And Japanese salamanders, I think, rarely exceed like 50 pounds. So they're much smaller. The discovery of these early amphibians sheds light on a time when life was drastically different from the ecosystems we are familiar with today. Whoa. Wow. Okay, that looks good. This is a very um well preserved temnospondyl. It's a shame we don't have more of the tail, but he looks huge. A Renarpatin, it looks a lot like the modern Chinese giant salamander. I haven't looked into the like a skeleton of the Chinese giant salamander, but this amphibian or temnospondyl looks a lot more robust than what Chinese giant salamander does. At least I'm guessing by the look of its anatomy. Aranarpatin supinatus belongs to a group of extinct amphibians called temnospondyls, which lived during the late Paleozoic. Hmm. Okay, so Paleozoic refers to the period of time from the Cambrian to the Permian, which somewhere between 545 million years ago to about 250 million years ago. And the Mesozoic starts around 250 million years ago and ends at 66 million years ago. These creatures were among the dominant amphibians before and during the rise of the dinosaurs. That's very true. They probably, for the most part, were quite carnivorous, probably feeding on a variety of different species of fish, maybe even smaller species of reptiles and amphibians. And the larger species might have been feeding on smaller species of dinosaurs. Most of these amphibians were small and often lived in aquatic environments, similar to modern amphibians, but Aeronarpetin was remarkably large compared to its relatives. Yeah, on that wooden crate, it looked huge. The discovery of this species is particularly significant due to the rare preservations of both its bones and soft tissues, a condition seldom seen in fossilized specimens. As Hart explained, we don't find skeletons with the head and body still attached, and the soft tissue preservation is an even rarer occurrence. This unusual preservation offers a much clearer picture of what life was like for these ancient amphibians and provides a direct link to understanding the evolutionary pathways that led to modern amphibians like the Chinese giant salamander. Um, hmm. I mean, it could, but this is quite far back. I mean, you could just say possibly earlier in its ancestry. I mean, it is still quite a debate as to whether or not the temnospondylus are the predecessors to these salamanders. I mean, um, in my opinion, they probably were considering they are the most modern amphibian-like animal during the Mesozoic and the Paleozoic. So it is probable. When comparing our Narptin to its modern relatives, it is clear that this ancient amphibian was giant in its time. While its closest living relative, the Chinese giant salamander, shares some superficial features with our Narptin, there are notable differences in size and physical structure. According to Mr. Hart, superficially, our Narptin looks a lot like the modern Chinese giant salamander, especially in the shape of its head. However, the fossil evidence suggests that our Narptin was far more robust and heavily built than its living counterparts. Yeah, the rib cage looked immensely wide, but more just when you're looking at the individual ribs, they had an extremely large diameter, and the skull itself looked quite robust. Not something that you really find in a Chinese giant salamander. The ribs and soft tissue outlines indicate a much more stocky body, and its dental features were quite striking. As Hart points out, it also had some pretty gnarly teeth, including a pair of fang-like tusks on the roof of its mouth. Whoa, well that's interesting. The salamander having tusks. The tusks in particular set Aranarpertin apart from its relatives, hinting at a carnivorous diet and possibly a more aggressive nature. Yeah, usually when you look at different species of animals with tusks, they do tend to be quite aggressive. This heavy set amphibian was estimated to measure up to 1.2 meters. So we're talking close to 4 feet from head to tail, making it a significant creature in its aquatic environment. It's not much longer. I think possibly it's only slightly longer than the Chinese salamander this instance, but it's just extremely heavily built. The Aranarpetin fossil is not just a relic of a single species, but also a piece of a broader evolutionary history. The species lived through a tumultuous period in Earth's history, a time marked by mass extinction events. Temnospondyls, including Aranarpetin, survived not one but two major extinction events, evolving to adapt and thrive in their environments. This resilience is in the face of catastrophic changes is what may have contributed to their evolutionary success. Yeah, it is interesting. They possibly survived the um, Carboniferous Permian timeline, Then they survived the Permian Triassic extinction event. That was one of the worst events in history. And then there was that smaller extinction that occurred between the Triassic and Jurassic. You could even say the end of the Jurassic, but then right at about 120 to 125 million years ago, they just vanished, which is interesting. That was you technically throughout these different epochs, even with inside of them, you would have had different smaller extinction events, but still a wide variety of different species would have gone extinct. And I'm not just talking about certain species of dinosaurs, I'm also mentioning or referring to different insects, different types of sharks in the oceans, marine reptiles, and even pterosaurs, as well as these amphibians. So it is interesting how that occurs. I think sometimes they're a bit more interesting with the smaller extinction events because all of a sudden you have these certain subfamilies of even dinosaurs or amphibians just die off, and it's just a big mystery as to why. Dr. McCurry, senior lecturer at UNSW and curator of paleontology at the Australian Museum, notes the last of the temnospondyls were in Australia 120 million years after Aranarpitan, and some grew to massive sizes. He further speculates the fossil record of temnospondyls spans across two mass extinction events. So perhaps this evolution of increased size aided in their longevity. I wonder who I'm thinking of when it comes to the um, amphibians or temnospondyl-like animals back in the Carboniferous. It might be a specific group of amphibians that were the predecessors to the temnospondyls, which um, were around at least during the early Triassic, believe late Permian. So I could be thinking of a predecessor when referring to like at least Carboniferous. But anyway, let's see. Do. Is there anything else? It's just being a bit repetitive now. Okay. Well, this is interesting with Aranarpitan. This animal is much more heavily built than the Chinese giant salamander, probably feeding on um, probably having a much larger variety of prey items compared to the Chinese giant salamander. I mean, obviously, looking at the time that it lived, it might have been feeding on smaller species of archosauromorphs at this time. So, not feeding on any dinosaurs at this point, though its later relatives most likely would have, at least the larger species. Smaller species probably just munching on smaller amphibians and insects. But yeah, this was really neat. Let me know what your thoughts are on our Renarpiton in the comments, and thank you for joining Creature Guide Live. Now let's move on to the next article by Manga Bay. Inbreeding adds to growing threats to Africa's smallest wildcat study finds. This has got to stop. I'm tired of all the inbreeding. Look at this cat, the black-footed cat. I love him. These animals, you can find them in different savanna regions, more semi-arid ecosystems of southern Africa. So certain areas of Namibia, Botswana, possibly Mozambique, southern region, and South Africa. Yeah, I don't think this is a domestic one. They just tend to have more of a sort of round look to them. Oh, the interesting thing is this is a member of the genus Felis of the Felidae family of cats. So, of this specific genus, there are around 7 different species. The tiny black-footed cat, Felis nigrips, is one of Africa's rarest cats, only found in South Africa, Namibia, and Botswana, with a total population size of fewer than 10,000 individuals. This has also got to stop. I'm tired of all these small cats. There's like 8,000 of them. No, there's like 7 to 10,000 of them. It's not good. It's not just occurring with different wild cats in Africa, it's occurring in different areas of um, Asia, Europe, possibly. Definitely Asia and Africa. The black-footed cat's genome shows a high level of inbreeding. No! Likely due to historic and recent habitat fragmentation, according to a published study. Inbreeding may increase the risk of amyloidosis, a fatal disease that kills about 70% of black-footed cats and also affects wild populations. It just keeps getting worse. Long-term ecological studies of the black-footed cat in South Africa and Namibia finds that the species faces numerous complex threats. Yep, blah blah blah. I know. Populations of the black-footed cat, a little known feline in southern Africa, have been declining for the last half a million years. Huh? How do we know that? And exhibit very high degrees of inbreeding. This could increase their risk of a disease called, yeah, amyloidosis. Frequently, genomic studies focus on large charismatic cats, so that small species, especially the very small black-footed cat, are neglected. Oh, that's not pleasing to hear. But something else interesting about the genus Felis, the domestic cat is its own distinct species of Felis. So it's also closely related to the black-footed cat. Um, and I'm mentioning this because there are certain instances where certain animals look quite closely related to each other, but they're actually quite distantly related. You might think that a like a panda is closely related to a brown bear. It's not. It's a completely different genus and a completely different subfamily of bears as well. Says study author Andrew Kitchener, principal curator of vertebrates at National Museum Scotland. I was hoping to hear like there's some sort of breeding program going on. Well, okay, I think there is. They just most of them died. However, all species have interesting stories to tell, and the black-footed cat is no exception. Yeah, but it's depressing. Weighing about as much as a large pineapple. That's the comparison that you give it? A pineapple? The black-footed cat is one of Africa's smallest, rarest, and arguably most endearing cats. A pineapple. They're only found in arid steppe and grassland savannas in southern Africa, including Namibia, South Africa, and Botswana. I said that earlier. Whatever IUCN Red List, you're everywhere, and many times you're inaccurate. This means nothing. Vulnerable or extinction. Jeez. Um, like many other threatened species. Oh, now you use threatened. It's a completely different category of whether they're stable or they're overpopulated to extinction. Anyway, the black-footed cat is under pressure. You just said that earlier, but there's another worry too. You keep repeating yourself. See if there's anything new. Over the past few decades, researchers have learned a lot about the cat's conservation needs thanks to long-term field studies in South Africa and Namibia. Black-footed cats, handsome tawny predators. What? With black spots and stripes that almost pass in looks for domestic cats, are extremely successful nocturnal hunter. Tell me something I didn't know. Yes. Okay. The cats, they do consume around say like a sixth of their body weight. They will feed on somewhere between 6 to 11 ounces of rodent meat per night. And these animals weigh, at least with the males, around 5 pounds. So they're quite small. Females get to around 3 pounds. Mortality rates are high, with nearly 40% of the studied populations dying each year, mostly due to predation and disease, says Alexander Sliwa, project leader for the Black-footed Cat Working Group and curator of Cologne Zoo. Well, okay, let's just look at it as everything about this cat is going to be negative, except how much they're able to eat. So that's pretty remarkable. But until now, there's been very little research on their genetics. So he's um using the device to look for probably a radio tracking collar on a certain black-footed cat. Look like they're in some part of the Kalahari. Um, Black-footed cat research projects, Namibia project leader Martina Custer is a field assistant. Nadele Shipala, tracking the cats on Grunau farms in southern Namibia. It's a goofy name. To redress that imbalance, Kitchener and fellow researchers began by generating the black-footed cat genome from a number of reference samples. They then combined this with previously published genomic data for the species and compared this with the genomes of other small cat species. The study shows that the black-footed cat branched off from the Felis genus about 3 million years ago. I think it branched off from some sort of subfamily of Felidae. It is part of the Felis genus, um, making it one of the most ancient small cats. There's evidence of subsequent hybridization with ancestors of the jungle cat, Felis chaus, sand cat, Felis margarita. What? I forgot about that. And wildcat, Felis sylvestris. Is that what Sylvester the cat, the creep, came from? Okay. Um, the researchers also traced the selection of genes that help make the black-footed cat such a successful hunter. Actually, it was the Tweety bird that I found a bit odder than Sylvester. I didn't mind that cartoon. Such a successful hunter, including those associated with the ability to track fast-moving objects, acute hearing, and a high metabolic rate that allows them to keep active on cold nights. But the analysis also shows that the black-footed cat population has been declining over the last 500,000 years. There was something I was missing earlier. The researchers found a worrying degree of inbreeding. And yeah, but okay, do we have the ability to figure that out from the fossils from like a 500,000 years ago? And in some measurements, even lower levels of genetic diversity than some of the big cats like lions and jaguars, Panthera onca. These high levels of inbreeding are likely due to historic and contemporary habitat fragmentation. The authors write it may increase the risk of the fatal disease amyloidosis, which is known to have a genetic basis. I bet there's a wide variety of other diseases. I mean, in reality, once that occurs, the immune system is very prone to just many diseases that, in a non inbred case, wouldn't be a problem. Sliwa, who wasn't involved in the study, says it addresses a real paucity of genetic studies on small cats, adding that future studies with larger sample sizes from more geographic areas would be good to see. Today, black-footed cat populations face myriad threats, including land use change, habitat fragmentation, change, disease. In Sliwa's long-term black-footed cat study, sites in South Africa and Namibia, the impacts are alarming. I currently really have a total crash of the population in my study areas, he says. In 2023 and 2024, Namibia experienced its worst drought in a century. Well, the thing is that, by the way, El Ninos are a natural occurrence. You're going to have different types of weather patterns when you have different El Nino and La Nina events, but that's going to take a while to explain. So I'm just going to mention that. Um, Droughts are likely to become more frequent and severe. Okay, here's the thing: you live in a desert. You're always in a drought. Technically, Namibia is just a vast. Even when you venture into the regions where you can find certain types of larger acacia forest, and you find the different herds of elephants and giraffes in these different regions, which, by the way, are a distinct subspecies from um, elephants, giraffes, and lions in the region. Further east in Botswana, they're specifically evolved for this desert habitat. So I don't know whether or not that the black-footed cat might coexist with them. Might in their more southern range in Namibia, but the thing is that the droughts I don't think are going to have a huge impact, mainly because there are many instances where black-footed cats can survive mostly on the blood from these different rodents that they're feeding on as their hydration. Um, Yeah, just where they get their hydration from, and then when water's available, black-footed cats will take advantage of it. It's the same thing with many small cat species, especially ones specifically designed for desert landscapes, especially the sand cat. It quite most for the most part relies on um, the water it gets from its prey species. Though, and it lives in the Sahara. Sliwa notes that his study area in southern Namibia, there's been practically no rain the past 2 years. Okay, that's kind of yeah, that's quite a bit of a drought, but um, it's a desert. The area has always been close to well, also this specific type of deserts. Different deserts throughout the world will also obtain different rainfalls. So not all will be the same, and sometimes even the snow. For instance, the Gobi Desert over Mongolia is a part of their annual precipitation. Now the drought is pushing the cats out of their favorite short grass habitats and into the riverbeds. That's interesting. I would think that these short grasses would be quite immune to these types of circumstances. Maybe it's just during that specific dry season, and so now it's putting a lot of pressure on even the plant species and puts them in closer contact with farmers and their dogs. The dual threat of starvation and being killed by dogs meant that last year, all of Sliwa's study animals died. Okay, that's unfortunate. Jeesh, that's sad. You have all these animals possibly being tracked and they get killed by the dogs. Were they going after chickens or like the dogs just killed them? Hmm. The black-footed cat's world is changing in other ways too. Uh, okay. Well, the main thing is that apparently the drought that's going on in Namibia, and I didn't know that there was a drought at the moment, um, is having a big impact on their favorite hunting habitats. So, okay, in Slywa study areas, that means more caracals and blackback jackals, both of which kill black-footed cats. We're talking about two very generalized predators against one highly specialized one. Well, okay. Um, the dogs and the jackals and the caracals, which is a caracal gets to about 20 to 25 pounds, but it's much larger than the black-footed cats. So, and they're also much more common. They thrive throughout different parts of the Namib Desert, the Kalahari Desert. And those two caracal and blackback jackals are the main predators of black-footed cats. So we lose at least 30% of the cats to them in terms of predation. Jeez. Hey, there he is. Male black-footed cat Fibo at the entrance of his den. The research team tracked Fibo for 3.5 months before he was killed by a blackback jackal. I had a feeling they were going to mention there was a tragic end. Fibo, predation by blackback jackals and caracal, along with amyloidosis. Okay, we know this is not good. Saliva also sees the impact of amyloidosis on the wild population, but says it's hard to figure out how much of overall mortality is attributable to the disease. Amyloidosis is a disease where abnormal proteins are deposited in organs or tissues. In wild black-footed cats, the first sign is excessive thirst. Black-footed cats usually get all the liquid they need from the blood of their prey. But as those abnormal proteins affect the kidneys, the sick cat will start going to standing water. Oh. Once that happens, the cat will usually be dead within a month, Sliwa says. either because it dies outright from the disease or because it becomes increasingly disoriented and is then an easier target for animals or for predators. So, yeah, this is really unfortunate. That's a pretty savage disease. I mean, with all these other diseases as well. But I would also think that possibly just certain diseases it's getting from the water itself. Oh, okay. So for us, it's quite difficult to distinguish, Liwa says. Was that pure predation because the animal wasn't watching out, or was that animal already sick and then been taken? The combination of threats means that whole populations can disappear, an outcome that Sliwa and colleagues are working hard to prevent. For the black-footed cat and other threatened species, understanding the genetic susceptibility to disease is important, Sliwa says. But on its own, isn't enough to conserve wild populations. For that, you need field data and funding to support conservation work on the ground, he adds. Is there another picture? Oh, mentioned that there was a. Okay, this is very sad with what's going on with the black-footed cats. Um, yeah, there definitely needs to be. I don't know, just I don't. I'm just not sure how to respond to this. I mean, the whole inbreeding issue, the disease, the drought going on, and then the caracals and blackback jackals. Um, I don't know what's. Let me know what your thoughts are on the situation with the black-footed cat in the comments. And thank you for joining Creature Guy Live. Well, let's move on to the next article by Indian Defense Review. New gigantic sauropod dinosaur species found in China's Jurassic layers. Paleontologists in China have identified a new species of gigantic sauropod dinosaur, Tongnolong zamai, from the late Jurassic period, offering valuable insights into the evolution of these colossal creatures. Okay, some early 2000s representation of a sauropod, probably something like Sauroposeidon. So I'm guessing this is probably referring to, well, usually sauropods are mentioned around the 150 million year point, but this could be anywhere between 160 to 145 million years ago. Some cases even a bit earlier, but usually prior to 160 million years ago is referred to as the mid Jurassic. Paleontologists in China have uncovered the skeletal remains of a new genus and species of sauropod dinosaur from the late Jurassic period, Tongnolong zangmai. This massive dinosaur, which lived approximately 147 million years ago, roamed the area now known as southwestern China. Oh, okay. So this was actually an even later species of sauropod. So this was after animals such as the more famous Diplodocus, Brontosaurus, Patasaurus, and Brachiosaurus over in North America went extinct by 149 million years ago. And those specific species would have already vanished. Measuring between 23 to 28 meters in length, I'm going to guess this is somewhere around 70 to 80 feet. Tongnolong zimai was one of the largest sauropods to have inhabited the region. Oh, this is probably a Mamenkasaurid. Mamenkasaurids would make it into, I think, a few million years into the early Cretaceous period, but right after that, they would have disappeared. They first evolved somewhere around 180 million years ago. According to Sign News, this discovery adds valuable insights into the diversity of sauropods during the late Jurassic and provides important data for understanding the evolutionary development of these colossal creatures. The newly described species of sauropod, 75 to 92 feet. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Wait a second. What am I feeling? Did did we already do this? No? Just specimen looks familiar. Okay, well, here's the shoulder blade, part of the chest. We've got 3 back vertebrae over here. That's good to see. There are many species of sauropods where you might find a neck vertebra, maybe part of the tip of the skull, if that. Or maybe you find a few toe bones, but that's pretty much it. This is actually nice to see with this species of Mamenkasaurid over in southwestern China. I'm thinking it's a Mamenkasaurid. Um, some of the tail vertebra towards the middle region, and then um, some of the larger back tail vertebra. And then we got part of the shin bone, part of the shin bone on the possibly a little right leg, and then some of the toe bone. So it's good to see. It's too bad though. There's no part of the skull. The fossil evidence, including these 3 dorsal vertebrae, 6 caudal vertebrae, and some limb bones, was excavated in the Tongnan district of the Sichuan Basin, a region rich in prehistoric remains. As noted by the research team, our fieldwork shows that the fossiliferous site belongs to the lower portion of the Upper Jurassic Suining Formation, overlying by the Quaternary deposits. Huh. So there's Pleistocene epoch or like Ice Age deposits in I guess the upper region of this formation. It's interesting. I mean, you can have it where there's a massive gap in time in different areas of land, pretty much anywhere in the world. Because when you look at different areas of Texas, you can have it where part of the northern region, like close to the Panhandle, so west of Fort Worth, and even what's that other place called? Um, uh, there's a town with the same name over in Oklahoma, but it's not hitting me. Where it refers to like 290 million years ago during the Permian, and you find different species of animals like Diplocalus, Eriops, and Dimetrodon. So I mentioned 2 different species of amphibian, the Diplocalus and the Eriops with the proto-mammal Dimetrodon. And then you march over to an area, think just south of Dallas, and it becomes early Cretaceous. So somewhere around 110 million years ago. But technically, it's quite a it's quite a long distance from each other. This Oh, let me send that. The discovery of Tugmalong Zamai challenges the long held view that sauropods from the Sichuan Basin were isolated from those in other parts of the world. Traditionally, sauropod faunas from this region were believed to be endemic, distinct from other Pangean terrestrial faunas, as the research noted. Um, the continents had already massively separated at this point. There were certain instances where certain continents were still connected, but Pangea is long gone by now. The sauropod fauna from the middle late Jurassic Sichuan Basin, wait, did I already read this? Has been considered an endemic fauna, which differs from the contemporaneous sauropod faunae from the Pangean terrestrial faunae. Okay, so it's just a um, different stated version of this. However, recent phylogenetic analysis of sauropod fossils from both China and Africa suggests a global distribution of Mamenkasauridae during the Middle Jurassic, challenging the East Asian isolation hypothesis. Oh, okay, so it's talking about their movement throughout the Jurassic in different parts of Asia and Africa. This distribution has often been interpreted by the East Asian isolation hypothesis, which occurred during the Jurassic to early Cretaceous, the paleontologist added. However, this hypothesis is challenged by more phylogenetic analysis and studies of neosauropod dinosaurs from China and Mamenkasaurid dinosaurs discovered from Africa, which support the idea that they were distributed globally during the Middle Jurassic. The identification of uh, Tungналong zimai adds to the growing body of knowledge about the evolution of sauropods, particularly as it relates to their increasing size over time. Okay, we know this. Okay, is there anything else that they found? Mamengosauridae was distributed globally in the late Jurassic rather than endemic fauna, which was previously considered limited to East Asia, the researchers concluded. Okay, so this is interesting with what they're finding with the Mamenchosaurs being actually quite endemic um, to different parts of Asia and even Africa. Most mamenchosaurs are associated with just specifically like China. The Suining Formation consists of purplish red mudstone and sandstone, the paleontologists observed. Abundant invertebrate fossils are known from this formation, especially ostracods and stoneworts, along with some freshwater bivalves and conchostracans. These invertebrates are not hitting me, partially because I don't spend a whole lot of time on invertebrates. Invertebrates are an animal without a backbone. Vertebrates have backbone. In addition to the sauropod fossils, other vertebrates were identified, including Ceratodus sesquionensis. It's a fish. Um, Plesiocylus tatsuensis. This is an early relative of today's modern turtles. And Mamenchosaurus anuensis, which is the most famous mamenchosaurid. And technically, it's even up there for one of the more famous sauropods, if you're talking about Asian sauropods. Probably is the most famous, though animals like Nemectosaurus might be taking the title. But I don't know. I mean, Mamenchosaurus has been known for a while. These findings provide important context for understanding the broader ecosystem in which Tongnolongs lived. The research, which was published in Scientific Reports on July 10th, provides a valuable contribution to the understanding of sauropod diversity, their evolutionary trends, and the global distribution of these incredible creatures during the Jurassic period. As the team concluded, Tongnolongs enriches the diversity of eusauropods and provides new information on the understanding of the sauropod diversity and evolutionary trend of the middle Jurassic to the late Jurassic when their bodies became larger. Yeah, it was around 165 million years ago when you start to see a massive increase in size with not just different species of sauropod, though that was the most obvious, but even different species of theropod, because you also have it over in England when the famous Megalosaurus first evolved. And that animal was somewhere around 30 feet in length and could weigh up to 3 tons, the largest, at least top two carnivores on Earth at that point. Eusauropods, that's a more broad term. That's one of the clades in which practically all sauropods belong to. You also had like the Eusauropodomorphs that would evolve into the true sauropods. Okay. Well, this is nice to see about Tongnolong zamangai, the Mamenchosaur they have discovered here. It's good to see that possibly a 92-foot long sauropod has been discovered in China. And let me know what your thoughts are on this sauropod in the comments. And thank you for joining Creature Guide Live. Now let's move on to the next article. Byoutdoors.com. Um, the first documented sighting of a great white shark off Alabama coast. Researchers from the okay, so here's the interesting thing. Um, great white sharks are seen off the coast of Alabama, but it's quite rare. When this does occur, it's usually during the spring, so sometime around April, May. They're much more commonly seen further north along the Atlantic coast of the eastern United States, especially also as you go further north to New England. Researchers from the University of South Alabama filmed a great white shark named Miss Paula. Seriously, the cuttlefish from SpongeBob? Okay. Off the coast of Alabama, Dr. Sean Powers, director of USA's Stokes School of Marine Environmental Sciences, calls the sighting rare. Yes, it's very rare. Um, Last week, USA announced researchers spotted the female juvenile shark on underwater cameras near Alabama's artificial reef zone. I didn't know Alabama had an artificial reef zone. Miss Paula, this is funny. She give bull sharks in the region driver's license exams. Anyway, Miss Paula, who is about 8 feet long and approximately 15 years old, apparently stuck around for about 10 days last month. Hmm. But as Friday last week, she is no longer there. Oh, that's a shame. It's not common to see a great white shark off Alabama's coast. No, it's not common. Powers told USA, we have surveyed over 1,000 artificial and natural reef areas over the last 10 years. Wow. Providing scientific data to assist the state of Alabama in managing its offshore fisheries. Hold on a second. Is that just off of Alabama? I didn't realize there was that much variety with the reef areas just off of the Alabama coast. Wow. I mean, I'm just familiar with like the coastal wetlands, estuaries in the region, the different marine mammal populations, even some of the sharks. But that's interesting. This is our first documented sighting of a white shark. It's not the. That's weird. It's not the first one, though. This is the first. Yeah, but it's not the first sighting in Alabama. There have been others. So though this is the first documented sighting by scientists in the area and a rare occurrence, divers have reported seeing white sharks off the coast of Alabama. USA says a fisherman caught one recently, and another great white washed up on the shore of the Florida Panhandle. These unofficial sightings suggest the species may be more common in the northern Gulf of Mexico than researchers thought. This can happen with a wide variety of animals. I mean, this just doesn't happen with rare marine mammals or sharks in this instance off the coast of places like Alabama, but it can even happen on land with different species of animals, like per se what we're seeing with the cougars in different regions, where many instances they were unconfirmed reports of cougars, and now we're seeing more confirmed reports, and it seems to be a similar instance with the great white sharks. The question are these is this possibly a sign of an increasing population of great whites, which would be good because great white sharks are having quite a big problem with their population at the moment. There are somewhere between 1,500 to 5,000 great white sharks, and they have a vast range throughout the earth, but there's just not many of them. And despite their portrayal in different movies, they're not the most aggressive sharks. I'm not saying they won't attack people and, and eat people, but tiger sharks are much more aggressive, and they're also much more numerous than the great white sharks. So it also looks like that the largest great white was spotted off the coast of Hawaii back in 2020 or 2021. It was a 20-foot female, possibly weighing close to a ton. So, well, it's just good to hear. Well, that's it for the animal news of the day. Remember to let me know what your thoughts are on the great white shark in the comments. And remember to like and comment. And if you love animals, share this show with everyone you know. And remember to catch all of our daily news streams from Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. And thank you for joining Creature Guy Live, because nothing is better than all animals all the time.